Alright, so here's my current build of my Mist Valley Ninja deck. This is what I played at the YGO Series Open at Chicago. And it's a really good deck. It has really good synergy within itself, which is pretty cool because usually you only get synergy like you get with this deck when it's a pre-made archetype. And this is just mashing stuff together, and it ends up working really, really well. I don't think I'll be updating this at all, this format, because the format's almost over. I'm not sure what the next ban list is going to be. It's not out yet as of the recording of this video. So I'll still have to see how that will affect this deck. And there's probably going to be changes on the way, and there will definitely be a lot of changes when Next Challengers comes out. I just would like to note that I'll probably start playing Anti-Spell Fragrance and Dark Simorgh in the deck for that format, and I'm also looking to put the Trap Tricks engine back in and play Time Space Trap Hole and Bottomless Trap Hole along with that. So that's enough about future changes. Let's just jump right into the deck profile. So you have 3 Hanzos, and that's the main monster. You want to get to Hanzo to start your plays. Summoning Hanzo lets you search for Ninjutsu Art Transformation, and then once you have the 2 cards together, you can go into Apex Avian, or if you already have an Apex Avian, you have a second Hanzo, then you can go into a Mist Valley Falcon to go along with the Apex Avian. So Hanzo's a +1 on summon. This includes both normal summons and special summons. The reason I'm including this to Sazank is because I want to get that Hanzo search whenever I bring Hanzo back with Call the Haunted, which I do quite often because I'll often have extra transformations that I need a Hanzo to go with. So I bring my Hanzo back and then use him again with another transformation. Sazank itself happens to be the best ninja monster besides Hanzo. Most of them aren't very good. Sazank is really good right now because it sends monsters to the graveyard instead of destroying them, and that's just getting better over time because destroying is getting worse over time. The only problem with Sazank right now is that he does send stuff to the graveyard instead of banishing it or putting it back in the deck or something like that. So Sazank will trigger the effects of the Shadow Fusion monsters, and it'll trigger Dante's effect, so you have to worry about stuff like that with him. The other ninja that most people play is Upstart Golden Ninja. I'll show you that one. This guy right here. And he's honestly just not that good. What he does basically is he allows you to make easy Exceed summons, but I don't want to make Exceed summons at all, if possible, just because Shadows is such a prevalent deck right now, and that just allows them to get the most out of their Shadow Fusions. So in that matchup, Upstart Golden Ninja is pretty much dead, and you can't do anything with it except use it with Transformation. But you can use these guys with Transformation too, so that doesn't really do anything for you. In matchups where you do use this effect, it's still not that good, because when you use his effect, you have to discard a trap, so you're taking a -1, and then what you usually will do is you summon Hanzo to get a +1 to counteract the -1 you took from the trap. So you're making a 1-for-1 Exceed without losing any advantage. The problem with this is that you're using up a Hanzo from your deck, so you have 1 less to normal summon and to get its good effect off. And with your search from your Hanzo, the only thing you can search is another Upstart Golden Ninja. So the only thing you're doing is you're setting up another Upstart Golden Ninja play. And if you do another Upstart Golden Ninja play, you'll have another less Hanzo to normal summon. So you're basically taking away your deck's best play every single time you use Upstart Golden Ninja. The alternative is you can actually summon itself with its effect, because it only summons a ninja. It doesn't say besides Upstart Golden Ninja like most cards do. So you can actually summon itself to prevent losing Hanzos, but when you do this, you don't get the +1 when you summon Upstart Golden Ninja from your deck, so you are actually taking a -1 to make an Exceed monster, which is not ideal. We don't want to do that. So there's really no defense for Upstart Golden Ninja. It's not a very good card. This is actually one of the main problems that most Mist Valley Ninja decks have. They play Upstart Golden Ninja, and it makes their deck worse. Moving on past the ninjas to the transformation targets, the main guy here, Apex Avian. Apex Avian is kind of like Dolka plus Sheehan all wrapped into one card, so it's really amazing. The main downside to Apex Avian is a lot of the times the only Mist Valley card you'll have on the field will be itself, so you just get a one-shot with its effect. You bounce it back to your hand, and then that's it. Now this is still a +1, so this is still a good play for you. You just have to make sure you're negating the right things. And it's even better when you can get Mist Valley Falcon out at the same time, because then you get one free negate per turn before you have to use your Apex Avian negate. So if you play it right, then you can end up just negating something every turn and then normal summoning Falcon back onto the field. And then your opponent can't do anything. They're completely shut down. When you get more than one Falcon onto the board, it's almost impossible for your opponent to win. There's only a few ways that they can get out of that. Those things being Apex Avian's main weaknesses, which are that you can't use it to stop inherent summons. So say they summon a BLS and attack it over Apex Avian, you'll need one of your traps to try to stop that, because Apex Avian can't stop that by itself. The other problem that Apex Avian has is that it can only negate one thing per chain. So if, say, you normal summon a Mist Valley Falcon, and they activate Torrential Tribute to destroy your Apex Avian and your Falcon, you try to bounce Falcon back to hand to negate the Torrential Tribute, and then they chain a Fiendish Chain or Breakthrough Skill to negate Mist Valley Apex Avian's effect. Apex Avian will not be able to negate that because it's in the same chain. It can only negate one thing per chain. Apex Avian's effect will be negated, and then Torrential will resolve, destroying both of them. So there are ways that they can work around Apex Avian if they do it right. So you have to have traps ready to try to support him. And then Mist Valley Falcon by itself is really good right now. 2000 beater can get over most things. You have to get up to artifact level or window level to be able to attack over Mist Valley Falcon. So that means most monsters that your opponent can normal summon or set will be smaller than Mist Valley Falcon. So Mist Valley Falcon can attack over most things right now. And to attack, it has to return one card you control to your hand, which is almost always good. That's almost never bad. This effect means that you can reuse continuous traps that end up sitting on the field. So a lot of times Call the Haunted and Fiendish Chain will sit on the field without effect because the monsters will not be destroyed. They'll be removed from the field in some other way. So with Mist Valley Falcon, you can return them to your hands to use them again. So you're basically getting a +1 when it attacks. And if it destroys something and you're not destroying a floater, then you get another +1. So that's +2 right there. Usually things are floaters though, so usually you just get the plus from bouncing the continuous card back to your hand. It should also be noted that you can bounce back monsters. So you can bounce back a Hanzo to get his normal summon effect again. You can bounce back a Sazank to reset it, and then use its flip effect again. You can bounce back a card D if your opponent used Book of Moon on it and you want to re-normal summon it. I've actually done that before. And the final thing that's pretty cool is that you can actually turn off Vanity's Emptiness without destroying it by using Mist Valley Falcon. You can bounce this back to your hand, and then you can special summon, and then you can reset Vanities, and then you'll have it again for your opponent's next turn. So you can special summon without letting your opponent special summon. Rounding out the monster lineup, I've got one Zephyros and one card D. These are pretty much there to boost out the monster count because I need a little bit more monsters. There aren't really any monsters that I want to actually run that much besides these guys right here. Maxing out Hanzo and Falcon. I would play more copies of these two if it was possible, but it's not. And then I don't want to play any more Sazanks or Apex Avians because I don't really want to draw them. Drawing them isn't that good. Those are mostly there to pull from your deck. So out of these two, Zephyros is pretty cool. You can use him in a similar way as Mist Valley Falcon, bouncing back continuous trap cards that are just sitting there to reuse them. The one thing you can't do with Zephyros is bounce back Vanities because Vanities prevents the special summon of Zephyros. Zephyros is also the easiest way to Exceed summon in this deck, making for easy rank 4 plays, which are pretty uncommon in the deck to be honest, but it comes up occasionally that you will need a rank 4, and Zephyros is pretty good for that. you probably want to side him out against Shaddolls because that's his main use, and you don't really want to be Exceed summoning against Shaddolls. So Zephyros is a pretty cool power play. It's only a one-off though, and so you don't want to play more than one copy of it because you can only use one effect. And then Card D is there for if you don't draw into one of your Hanzo's first turn. It's a nice way to still get a +1 on your first turn. This deck likes to go first because it likes to be able to summon Apex Avian before your opponent has a chance to do anything. Drawing Card D after the first turn is pretty bad usually. You don't want to get this mid to late game, so I only run one copy because I don't ever want to have more than one. That's just really bad if you draw more than one of this. Even the one copy is kind of iffy, and it'll probably be gone once I put the trap tricks back in. They're not there right now because the trap hole cards just are not that good this format, for the most part. So it's a very small monster lineup, only 11. Moving on to the spell cards. 2 Rhoda, basically 2 more monsters. They're 2 copies of Hanzo. It's the only target in the deck because this is actually a machine. But you want Hanzo as much as possible, so you want to max out on Rhoda and on Hanzo. If Rhoda went to 3, I would probably play 3 Rhoda with only 3 Hanzos as targets. The 3 and 3 ratio might occasionally lead to dead Rhoda draws, but as it is 3 and 2, I've never dead drawn Rhoda. It's always had at least one target left in the deck to search. And running 5 copies of this makes for a lot of consistency in the deck. And then I'm also, to boost my consistency more, running full 3 copies of Duality. Duality is extremely good in this deck because you almost never special summon your own turn. Sometimes you'll use one of these 2 during your turn, during your battle phase to get an extra attack on your opponent, but usually use these 2 on your opponent's turn. And the only other ways that you special summon, for the most part, are Soul Charge and Zephyros. So as long as you don't have one of these 2, then you're not going to be special summoning your turn. So the only downside to Duality in that case is you can only use 1 copy. But even that's not too big of a deal because if you draw multiples, you just play them on the next turn. The temporary -1 for that one turn isn't probably going to hurt you. And the consistency this adds to the deck cannot be understated. It's really key to max out Duality. The other main consistency card, Upstart Goblin, I am not running, mostly because this deck has a lot of cards I want to keep in the deck. I don't want to draw Apex Avian, I don't want to draw Sazak, I don't want to draw too many Ninjutsu Art transformations. Drawing 1 is fine, but I don't want to draw more than 1. The other ones I want to be able to search. And I also want to have at least 1 Mist Valley Falcon left in my deck, though I do want to draw the other ones, if possible. So Upstart is really not ideal here because you don't want to be drawing recklessly and just giving your opponent life points and end up drawing into cards that you would rather keep in your deck. Duality avoids that because you get to choose whichever of the 3 you take. Soul Charge is really good in this deck. The main thing you do with this is you bring back Apex Avian, and usually you'll try to bring back Apex Avian plus Falcon, and then your opponent is in trouble once you do that. Soul Charge is basically a win card in this deck because if you get it off for a good number of monsters, your opponent's in trouble. You might be wondering how I get Apex Avian in the graveyard when I'm sending it back to my hand to negate cards, and I'll do a little teaser right now. Phoenix Wingwind Blast is there for that, and I'll get more into that later when I get to the traps. I'm running 2 MST because there are a few cards that lock this deck down. Vanities can be a problem, but I can get out of it. But this is still a good card to counter Vanities. More so than that, Skill Drain and Royal Decree are problematic for this deck. When Skill Drain is out, I can't make full use of Hanzo or Apex Avian, and those are my main cards in my deck, so I kind of want to be able to use them. And Royal Decree is even worse. I basically can't play when Royal Decree is out unless I already have a Apex Avian set up. My only options to get out of that pretty much are Soul Charge and MST. If I don't get one of those, I pretty much just lose to Decree. And then I'm playing 1 Book of Moon to round up the spells. Book of Moon isn't as good this format, but it's still pretty versatile, and the fact that I can use it on myself is actually probably the best part of the card at the moment. It's more useful to use it on your own monsters than it is on your opponent's against most of the top 3 decks. Usually I do end up siding this out against a lot of decks just because it's a easy card to take out to make room in my main deck. Book of Moon is one of my favorite cards, but hopefully it'll get better in the future, and it's still solid, so might as well play it. Then it makes 10 spells, which leaves room for a whopping 19 trap cards. So the first trap card, we run 3 copies of Transformation. You want to have copies in your deck to be able to search, so you want all 3 of them. Drawing them is totally fine because it's pretty easy to get to your ninja monsters, and if you do, then you can use your ninja monsters multiple times to get full use out of Transformation. This is really good just because it lets you pull Apex Avian from the deck. It can also summon Falcon, as I said earlier, and Sephiroth if you really need to dump Sephiroth in your grave somehow. It can be useful for that. And it can also pull Traptrix Miramello from the deck if you do play that to pop a spell or trap. Going along with that, I have 3 Call the Hunteds. Call the Hunted is extremely good. Usually I use it to bring back Hanzo or Apex Avian, depending on what I have on my field. If you have an extra transformation, Call the Hunted works really well with that, to be able to summon an extra winged beast from your deck. Opening Hanzo plus Call the Hunted plus Ninjutsu Art Transformation is pretty much a win by itself. So what you do is you summon Hanzo to get its effect, and you get a second transformation. So then you set 2 of these and Call the Hunted. As soon as your opponent's turn starts, you use Transformation, contributing Hanzo to bring out Apex Avian. Then you use Call the Hunted on Hanzo, and use Hanzo to search a free Sazank. It's not really important, but you might as well just get the free monster. And then you use your second transformation on Hanzo to bring out a Mist Valley Falcon. So with this play, you just went +1, and you brought out Apex Avian and Mist Valley Falcon, which at the minimum should give you another +2. And if you play your cards right, this combo right here can just win you the game by itself. And then I'm playing 3 copies of Fiendish Chain. Fiendish Chain is definitely better than Breakthrough Skill in this deck, just because Fiendish Chain is continuous, and you can bounce it back to your hand to use it again with Mist Valley Falcon. One cool thing is if your opponent summons a weak monster, say they summon Tour Guide and Burning Abyss, and they use its effect, you chain Fiendish Chain to stop it from pulling a Burning Abyss monster from the deck. Then next turn, you attack over their monster with Falcon, sending the Fiendish Chain back to your hand. So you basically got a free use out of the Fiendish Chain because you can reset it and then use it again on whatever your opponent uses next turn. Another thing that Fiendish Chain does well is that it stops attacks. So this can come in real handy if your opponent manages to summon a BLS or something. Fiendish Chain is one of the few cards that can help fight that off. And then I'm running 3 Vanity's Emptiness. Vanity's Emptiness is just really good in this format, and it works really well in this deck. It fits better in this deck than it does in pretty much every other deck, because you can turn it off without losing it with Mist Valley Falcon, and you can also protect it from MST with your Apex Avian. So if you have Apex Avian, Falcon, and Vanities, there's almost nothing your opponent can do to beat you. I was main decking one of these before it even became as good as it was this format, before Duelist Alliance came out, and this is pretty much at least a one-up in the main deck, no matter what the format is, and you'll probably want to side the other ones, just because it's such a good card in this deck. And then I'm playing only 2 of the one-up cards in my main deck. The other ones aren't as good this format, but Warning is obviously good against every deck. It's the best summon stopper, basically. And then Compulse is really good this format, using it against the Shadow Fusions or Dante or a rank 4 when you're playing against the Teller Knights. So this is good against every main deck. And the best trap card in the deck, 3 Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. This is really important. Most Mist Valley Ninja decks don't play this, but you really need this. What this does is it puts your Apex Avian in the grave after you get a negate. So you're actually making use of that +1 that you get from Apex Avian. So usually, if you bounce Apex Avian itself to your hand, to negate something. It's a +1 that doesn't do anything for you. You don't actually use the Apex Avian for anything once it's in your hand. The only thing you can do is summon it again through transformation, and then you're taking a -1. So you're just offsetting the +1 that you got earlier. A better -1 to take is using a -1 to fuel your Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, which is one of the best trap cards in this format. Spinning things to the top of the deck is really good, and this is good against pretty much every single deck that exists. Dumping the Apex Avian into the grave to revive it with Soul Charge in Color Haunted is so critical that I've actually considered running either one Karma Cut or one Regeki Break to boost up the number of discard traps in my deck. Getting at least one of these each game is really critical for having your deck run smoothly. And then I'm playing 2 Wiretap. There are a lot of trap cards that cause this deck problems, mostly Effect Negation, used in chains against Apex Avian. Breakthrough Skill is a problem because it goes to their graveyard and then they can use it again, and you have to negate it again with Apex Avian. Unlike Herald of Perfection, you can actually negate the grave effect of Breakthrough Skill with Apex Avian. You just would rather not do that if possible. So Wiretap gets around that by shuffling the Breakthrough Skill back into the deck. This can also be useful against Satellar Nova Alpha or other counter trap cards that Apex Avian can't negate because it's only spell speed 2, and counter traps are spell speed 3. So those are the 40 cards I'm playing right now. There's not any other 40 cards that I think I would want to play. It works really well, this format. So for the side deck, I'm playing 2 Maxi. This is mostly there for Infernities. Infernities are a big problem if they set up because Infernity Break is really good against this deck. You can also side this in against other things that special summon a lot, but Infernities is the main concern. 1 MST, sometimes this is needed because some decks do play Decree, and also if you're playing against something like Yang Zings, you'll want to have this with all their continuous trap and spell cards. That's basically what makes their deck function. And then I'm playing 1 Bottomless and 1 Trench on the side. They're not good against any of the top 3 decks, so that's why they're not in the main deck, but they're good against pretty much every deck besides those 3. So these go in whenever you're playing against a rogue matchup. 2 Dimensional Prison in the side. These don't really come up that often. This is more for rogue decks once again. If you're playing against hands, these are good because you can use them to banish the hand monsters. 2 Full House. This is possibly the best card in the side deck. If you resolve Full House, you're probably going to win that game because you just went +4, +3, something like that. It's really easy to resolve Full House in this deck because you can target your own face-up cards that are just sitting there uselessly. So you can side this in against pretty much any deck that runs back row. If they run any face-up continuous spell or trap cards, I would recommend siding this in. So anything like Supply Squad and Burning Abyss or anything like that. If you see it game 1, I would recommend putting this in. And then I'm playing 1 Soul Drain and 1 Macrocosmos. Soul Drain does nothing to this deck, so I would definitely recommend playing this against decks that have grave effects. Macrocosmos does hurt this deck a lot. You can actually lose games just by having your opponent activate Macrocosmos against you at bad times. But if you have Macrocosmos yourself, you can use it at the right times, and you can use it to shut down your opponent's deck, and you can play around having a Macrocosmos up. And then I'm playing 2 of each of the Imprisoning Mirrors, which are obviously mostly there for Satellar Knights and then Shadows and Burning Abyss. But this also hits Infernities, which is a problem matchup. This also hits Bujins and Lightsworns, which can also both be a little bit difficult for this deck at times. These are both really obvious in terms of how good they are against light and dark decks. One thing that should be noted is that Shadow Imprisoning Mirror does shut down Hanzo and Zephyros. I usually side out Zephyros when I'm siding in Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. Usually that's also because I'm siding in Graveyard Hate alongside the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, so Zephyros really is not good with any of those up. You have to be careful not to negate your own Hanzo effect with Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, but as long as you're careful, then you can use this to great effect. So my extra deck down here is not really that important. Sometimes you do need it, so you might as well have it. It doesn't hurt you having it, but you'll probably summon 1 Exceed monster per match on average. Currently they're ranked in terms of how often I use them, Over here's the most, over here's the least. These three I've never summoned, so you could probably cut them for something else if you find you need something else. I have never actually needed another card. It should be noted that I'm only playing one of each, specifically because I use the extra deck so rarely. I've never needed to summon two of any of them. If I did run two of something, it would definitely be Castel. Castel I use the most, and for obvious reasons. It's just an easy +1. Lets you deal with problem cards. I actually needed it one game to spin Skill Drain back into the deck, use Book of Moons to help its effect go off. And then I use Silent Honor Arc a lot also. It's a lot of the same situations where Castel is good, but Honor Arc has 100 more attack, and it has a free 1 resistance to destruction. So use Honor Arc when it does the same thing, because it's slightly better. And then Karen Gorgon is also the other one I summon frequently. These are the three main ones. Karen Gorgon is really good because you can use it to redirect MST and Breakthrough Skill, and also Fiendish Chain if somebody's playing that. So those are all pretty problematic cards, and he's really good especially against Breakthrough Skill. So the next three are guys I've summoned I think twice. So that shows you how much I use this extra deck. So Abyss Dweller shuts down some matchups. It can be really good sometimes. And then Cowboy for Game, obvious. And then Steel Storm Roach I've actually summoned twice. It's just really good against certain matchups where they want to special summon high-level monsters. It's very specialized, but since it's so good at what it does, I ended up using it because might as well. And then after that, I'm into the monsters that I've used once. Exciton Knight, I needed to nuke the field once. It's not really that relevant because you have so many cards usually. You commit a lot to the field, and more often than not, you're actually ahead in card advantage. Alucard, you can make him when you soul charge to Sazon's back. I did that once, just 2,000 life points to get a monster on the field and pop a face down card, so it's pretty decent. Heartland Draco, attack for game, pretty simple. Crazy Box, Skill Drain, and I have some of this under Skill Drain before, so it's pretty nice. Seraphine, you can pump him up really high because of all the continuous trap cards you have in this deck. He's actually an out to Leo just because he gets bigger than Leo. You only need 4 face-up cards for him to do that. And then I summoned Black Ship of Corn once to do 1,000 burn and send a monster to the grave. Yeah, you really don't need a lot of these. If you have other things that you find you need, you can probably cut something over here for something different. But you want to make sure you're at least playing these 3. So that was my Miss Valley Ninja deck. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to check out some of my other stuff.